based therapies for neurodegenerative diseases. And I have planned this in two parts, in the sense that one part will be that I will discuss about the biology and general concept, and as a second part, uh, the I want you to look at the references, I mean the literature, and come back with two successful or two most prospective stem cell based therapies for Alzheimer's, two of them, and for Parkinson's disease, two. Okay. So it is you can say it is 50-50 on both sides. So I hope you understand that the stem cells, or at least to start with, the brain. There are many wonders in this whole universe. For me, the biggest questions, I think I must have told, but I will say it again anyway. The origin of the universe. Right? That is something that is always the big question that we have, and I have too. Second, I have the biggest question is origin of life. How did it evolve or emerge? The third is the functioning of evolution. We know how it does, but still there is so much we need to understand about it. And for me, the fourth and one of the most puzzling questions of all these is the brain. How does the brain function? What is a memory? Is it eventually stored as a physical thing? Or what is sleep? And what is subconscious mind? What is consciousness to start with? What is mind? This is something so puzzling. Brain is the best of the universe, I think, in my view, because without which we wouldn't have been understanding what are the rest of the things. We study about the brain. That means a brain is studying about a brain, and that's the amazing thing about brain. And this is certainly a great thing in terms of you can do it in two ways: neuroscience, cognition, and psychology. All these things are one whole bunch. So there are I will show you a few of them. So basically, this is a nice meme I found several years ago on Facebook. This is us, what we look like, whether we are beautiful, strong, anything, it doesn't matter, right? At the end, this is us. This is where we think, we act, we decide what to act, where not to act. And the only job, or kind of its job, is it has two strategies: its desire for excellence, and its scare, or it needs security. There is a continuous tussle between these two. If we want excellence, we have to go out of our comfort zone, right? If we don't go out of comfort zone, we don't get excellence. Excellence is outside, and this is where our comfort zone is, where we are secure. And brain makes important decisions based on the situations, when to go, when not to go, and that is how its first priority is to exist, that is not to die away. And so the first thing it will try to do is it will it will take decisions based on which the body will act to first is to be alive or exist, right? These are, sometimes you have to think for yourselves, independent thinking, that is what will happen. It is about studying your own self, right? That way we will know more about the world. If we look at the brain, I'm not going to talk about everything that I know, or I don't know many things about it. So I will talk some things fascinating that should encourage you to think more about the brain itself. So if you look at the somatosensory cortex, which is responsible for many of the voluntary movements, the amount of brain that is dedicated to our body parts, different body parts. Most we have, some of them are hands. Our hands are very sensitive to touch, and actually this is something, the hand is something that's huge development in the terms of evolution. If we didn't have hands as much, we wouldn't have been using the making those tools. And it's not like, say, we have the hand is one thing, and we need how to use the hand, right? Those decisions or what should happen should come from the brain. Only then this hand can function. Say, assume that the brain has all the logic of how to use the hand, but there is no hand, then too there is no product. So the way these two things have evolved could be like little bit of change in the hand, and brain's capacity has increased. And when you use more brain capacity to use the hand, that how it's a cycle of both increasing in their capacities, and now we have a brain that is a hand, versatile hand, connected to a very powerful brain with which we can control many things, our sensations, the way we fingers. Monkeys also have fingers. Their thumb is a little bit different, and their these fingers, I hope you saw a monkey scratching. They use, majority of the time they use these fingers together, the rest of them. Whereas ours, we have a we have very versatile and long fingers to manipulate tiny things, and that is that ability to manipulate the environment, make tools, has led to a is one of the biggest success in responsible traits for success of human beings. There are also other aspects, something like the lips and tongues. Tongue is a beautiful tissue which it changes shapes, and it is functional in terms for perception of taste, manipulation of food in the mind, and also for talking, and also the lips. So many of it, our face, several things in our face also have the brain that is dedicated for to a large amount. A little bit about to the genitals, and a lot of it um, to the feet. We are bipedal. That means we are in a way, we are not in the best position to stand erect, but because of our the balance, the feet sends a lot of information to the brain about our balance, where we are in the three-dimensionally, our center of gravity and our mobilities, and the kind of texture that's under the feet. Many things are coming, the information is coming from the feet. So there is also a large dedication of neurons to the feet as well. This is a nice way of thinking about the brain. And if you did you have the elective now, or do you have it next time, next semester? Neurobiology, anybody, please?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay, maybe it'll be some other semester. um, there are some things that we have to keep in mind. As we get old, our brain function also keeps going down. So the best way is to keep mental stimulation, in the sense, try to solve puzzles, learn new skills. That means doing something that we haven't done before. not those that we already know. Maybe writing is one thing. There is also poetry, say, for example. These are things that will make our brain think a lot. So you can also do sports. Sports are also, it is about brain as well, the body and the brain. And then physical exercise, when you have to have your a body should be picking up a lot of things to, I mean, to strain the muscles, which will have, I think in some class we discussed about how myokines influence the brain. Myokines are released by exercising skeletal muscles, which will affect the brain. And then that is going to have a positive influence on the body. That is when we become happy, healthy as well. So right now, I don't think any of you have any issues with these. But as we grow older, maybe around 45, these things tend to pick up because of our sedentary lifestyle in general. So these some blood pressure and blood sugar and cholesterol should be kept in good shape or in the optimal ranges. Try don't get into tobacco. Okay, no smoking, no chewing tobacco. Alcohol, well, don't abuse. You may have a little bit social, occasional, but don't take it too much. That is what these recommendations from the Harvard Medical School, I think. This is something we need to take care of our emotions. How can we avoid stress is one thing. It's not always in our hands. It depends on the way, how sensitive we are. But our self-analysis can help. If we know we are overly sensitive, we should try to take steps to reduce that or avoid getting stressed. And always use protection on your head. Don't get any injuries, or helmet and other things should be used. One of the things is we should have social networks. Say, I mean, I'm a little different on that, but let's still say we are humans and we are a social animal. That means we evolutionarily, if we think, we are bound to be social, and human race has survived as much because it was able to form the groups. There is strength in groups, so we have different traits and instincts of being in the group. And when we become isolated, that is when we start breaking down. It's not say solitude is another way you use, which means being alone and being fine with being alone, right? Not everybody can handle this solitude. So as long as possible, you should have social networks. And I meant real social networks, not about social media, right? Real ones in which you can do something mutually interesting, such as playing sports, going to movies, going to watch sports at least, where you can feel that socially connectedness. I wouldn't want to discuss this one. Let's leave it at that. Okay, in America they do take a lot of aspirin for several things, and then I think some studies have shown that low dose aspirin may boost the cognitive or protect the brain, but we don't know that. I'm not sure. I haven't studied enough on that. So here is the page to the Coursera course that I have done some time ago. Understanding the Brain, the Neurobiology of Everyday Life. It is by Peggy Masson from the University of Chicago. It's a fantastic course. I think it's 12 weeks or so, and the videos are short. And I would encourage you to take up this course and do it during your vacation, so that when you take the real course, you might probably have a good understanding of where we are. So again, I wanted to watch the videos again. I should watch the videos of this one once again. There is also financial aid available. That means you if you click on that, I hope you have already done that, but still I will tell it. You can write why. They will ask you to write, I think, 250 or 150 words for each for 2 sections or so. You should be able to tell why you are unable to pay. And if you put it in US dollar, in Indian rupees wise, we think we can get that. And if Shastra has provided you the free access to it, you should be able to do it anytime when it is open. Okay, let's get into some things, into what we are going to discuss. So first thing, how does memory system work? That is something also, say, memory, learning, or logical thinking, abstract thinking. I would want to just take one step back. This is us and what we can see in our minds, what we can see, what we can perceive in the real life is other humans, trees, right? Birds. You can see the whole, whatever is perceivable. But there are many things very far away, like the stars and the universe. And there are some things that are too minute, right? Very small. The cells, atoms, quarks, we don't know about them. And there are some things like abstract, like mathematics. And say what is perceivable, this is where we were when we evolved. I think whatever we can see, that is what we understand. Our brain understands those. That is what every other animal also can do if we were just animals. But what humans right now are able to do is beyond mere perception. This is just mere perception. We have learning, we know about how behavior, whatever is we can see, smell, taste, we know those things. But these are the universe. We don't know how it works. The abstract things and the logical functions, many things are beyond our immediate perception. And still, the mind is right now our human brain. That is our superpower. A brain is the human's superpower. And we are able to now understand many things, including the functioning of the brain itself. And that's the beauty of neurobiology, or studying the brain. We don't have to take it as a course in regular semesters if you have to have options, but it's important to have some kind of self-learning. When you are in a state of self-learning, then you are actually the teacher right away. Okay, you are your own teacher. There's nothing better than that. Okay, so we are able to perceive things that we watch, we see, hear, smell and taste through our sensory organs, and we register that sensation. We keep it in our short-term memory, and over a long time part, say why I put this slide is also how we can remember what we study. We study and then we save it. Usually when you want to store, we should be able to associate some function with our daily life, right? And then probably we have to keep on rehearsing or rethinking about it. And this is occasional that will make it into our short-term memory, and we occasionally bring it to and recollect the concept or something that we learned in a leisurely way, and after a long time. That is when it becomes our long-term memory. And it is, of course, the memory itself is a very complex thing to just discuss like this. Must have learned in the biology for engineers what are all the uh, different neurons. This is a neural cell, neuron. That is the cell body of the neuron. This part is the cell body. And we have this long tube that is the axon. Where is it? Yes, here is the axon. And then at the end, we have these ends, which are referred to as the axon terminals. And we also have on the other side, we have short projections like these, which are called as the dendrites. Dendrites are the ones which receive the signal or nerve impulse from a preceding neuron here. Say there is a neuron here which will give signals. This is the input of information. From this input, it goes to the cell body. From cell body, it will travel through the axon, and from these terminals, which will be joined to other dendrites. Typically, that is the setup. And neurons are some of the longest cells in our body. They can be very long because of these axons. Then there are also other cells. The cell body contains the nucleus, and that's why it's a little bulkier. And we have astrocytes, that's the glial cells, and there are others, oligodendrocytes. Yes. So Alzheimer's disease is what we are going to discuss now, and it's named after a patient, a doctor whose name is Alois Alzheimer, and the patient name is August Ditter from 1902. I mean, there must have been many more of these cases before too, but nobody has studied or recorded properly. And she was the first individual who was studied and recorded. The stages or symptoms, you can think of it, as we progress through it, we will probably understand it better. So the first thing, of course, the Alzheimer's disease is characterized by memory loss. Okay, or amnesia. People become forgetful of events that have happened in a little while ago. So there are several stages. It's normal that because of aging, we tend to forget some things. We misplace things as usual, and we sometimes may have flashes of memory loss here and there. Those are quite common with age, maybe after crossing somewhere around 70. Some people are fine, and some people are more prone to, they may have more of these recurrences. So the early stage Alzheimer's would be that these are generally absent-minded, and they forget appointments or what they have said in the immediate ones. And those are usually observed or noticed by those that are living closely with them, or maybe interacting continuously. And yes, and as the Alzheimer's disease progresses, it becomes even more difficult for the individual to remember anything. They become more confused, and they also have trouble speaking what they want coherently. Sometimes they keep repeating the same thing what has come, because there is something like the second thoughts are not filling up, so that probably they might be repeating the same things. And in the late stage, they become more aggressive or very passive, and they lose their sense of self-awareness, and they become anxious, abusive, anxious, and paranoid. So the molecular reasons or cellular reasons for it is what we are trying to understand. So there are two important aspects to this. One is the formation of amyloid plaques, and the other one is called NFTS, that is neurofibrillary tangles. So we will have a look at it in a while. So how I was talking about memory, and how is, I also mentioned something like, how is memory stored? Is it stored as a physical entity? Like, say, for example, we have on a CD or in a memory stick, we have way of storing the physical data in binary code, right? As plus or minus, plus or minus, or 0 and 1s, and because of which we can store a image of a file on a disk. How is memory in brain stored? Anything, memory or a process of how to do it, they are stored in terms of connections between neurons, right? So this is what you would use rewiring, right? The brain is wired, we say, or we have to rewire our brain for learning a new thing, or learning a new thing may create rewiring. This is the general terms they use. And I forgot to mention, there is also one nice course on NPTEL. I should be getting that. I didn't finish it, but I started it. NPTEL also, there is a course from one of the professors from IIT Madras. You may want to also watch that. He also has fantastic information on it. I should have completed it first. Anyway, so in that they will discuss, in this course I have learned about some things about the minimum or the shortest route for connections, and many things about it. So basically the brain functions, the neurons are there, and the connections between the brain is what matters, and that is what is how every process and memory is stored in the brain. So, and when we, because of these amyloid plaques or formation of neurofibrillary tangles, we lose those connections between neurons, and that is when we forget, we lose those memories, and we forget how we used to do things. Let's just see what happens when, a healthy brain is, the normal size is somewhere, it should have been this much, but because of connections, loss of connections, and because of lack of these connections, some neurons die, so the brain size usually shrinks, and that is one of the signs of Alzheimer's disease. So these plaques, amyloid plaques, we said these are protein aggregates that are present between the neurons somewhere outside like this. And they are, first of all, an abnormality by itself, and secondly, they might be interfering with connections between different neurons. That is one of the biggest problems. And when they lose these connections, the neurons with tangles will die. We'll see the neurons with tangles. What is NFT? Neurofibrillary tangles. There is a protein. I hope we said that the neuron has a body, and it has a long axon like this, with several of these termini. These axons are long, and that means they should have good support, and that support is given by the cytoskeleton. If you remember the different parts of different components in cytoskeleton, you must have read about microtubules, axin filaments, and integrins. Is that right? Intermediary filaments. Right? Out of these, the microtubules are the largest and the strongest of them. They are made up of proteins, dimers of tubulin, and they form several protomers like these, and they all come together and then they form a hollow loop. If you see the cross section of an axon, you see that there are multiple microfilaments like this that are microtubules of that are supporting or the maintaining the strength or providing strength to the axon. And each of these microtubule is made by several protomers of tubulin molecules. The microtubules are highly dynamic. They can form, they can disintegrate, and for that stability, there is a protein called as tau protein, which is important for the stability of microtubules. So if we have functional tau protein, then the microtubules will remain in proper shape. If microtubules are in proper shape, the axon will be fine and healthy, so the neuron will survive and make the connections properly. But what may happen is, in some cases, in diseased case, especially in the Alzheimer's case, the tau protein may have some mutation or post-translational modification, because of which they might become non-functional. And if they become non-functional, microtubules are going to collapse. And if microtubules are going to collapse, then the axon is going to break out as well, because of which the neuron dies. Right? So the tau protein, when it is non-functional, may form these clumps, tangled clumps of tau protein like that. And the effect is seen on the stability of the microfilaments. And because of which the axon collapses and this neuron dies. So there are multiple places on the tau protein. We are not going into all the details about Alzheimer's disease, but I can give you the important parts of it, and we can probably learn those things. So there are several people have been trying to understand if there are any genetic genetic predisposition, or if there are any abnormalities of post-translational modification. There are multiple points or the amino acid residues in which there are a lot of either mutations may occur, or because of post-translational modification, tau protein function could be compromised, and that is going to affect the survival rate of neurons, and that could be resulting in Alzheimer's disease. So some of them is, say, the tau protein. As I was talking here, tau protein stabilizes the microtubule by binding to the surface, something like that. It interacts, and when they are phosphorylated, they become detached from the microtubules, because of which the microtubule the microtubule will collapse. And the phosphatases, they keep removing the kinases. These phosphatases will keep the tau protein functional so that the integrity of the microtubule is maintained. So if we have hyperactivity of kinases, then it will result in microtubule depolymerization. If we have less activity of these tau protein phosphatases that can remove those phosphates, then too we are increasing the microtubule depolymerization. Okay, and when we have hyperphosphorylation of the tau protein, they may become like this. They may aggregate and form these tangles. This is the same thing, almost discussing. So what I want you to remember is the tau protein, the importance of it in the stability of the microtubule, and the activity of tau protein is dependent on its phosphorylation. If it is phosphorylated, it becomes non-functional. If it is in unphosphorylated state, it is functional. If it becomes phosphorylated excessively, then tau protein cannot function, because of which microtubule is destabilized, and that results in neuronal death. So there are multiple other ways also how tau protein could be affected. It is just the hyperphosphorylation is what we have discussed. There are other ways. The truncation, because of a protease activity, it might get truncated. And there are others also, like glycosylation, nitration, polyamination, and so on. And this is not a post-translational modification, but some mutations, as I discussed a little while ago, in tau protein may have genetic predisposition, which might not let it function properly, and because of which it might result in the malfunction of tau, and then which will affect the survival rate of neurons and formation of the neurofibrillary tangles. There are some ways of how to treat by other ways. Inhibitors of kinases is one ways, and I'm unsure about the other ones, but I hope you understand the general concept of how we are treating. We are trying to reduce the phosphorylation rate of tau protein, and then tau is effective, it can survive, and then tau can function, and then we may delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease. Okay, the other one is amyloid plaques, right? So amyloid precursor protein, which is called as APP, amyloid precursor protein, which is a transmembrane protein, which will be acted upon by the beta secretase, and this part will be left out. And the gamma secretase is another enzyme. I hope you remember where we discussed about gamma secretase in NOT signaling. We discussed gamma secretase, which is responsible for the generation of NICD, notch intracellular domain. So gamma secretase cleaves the APP amyloid precursor protein here to generate this A beta. So what happens is, let me see. No. So when we have these amyloid proteins, a lot of them, they can form, several of them may clump together, and then they form the amyloid plaques, which are kind of damaged, which will interfere with the way neurons connect with each other as well. Say, I would want to also discuss in general what are the several aspects of how we might be enhancing the rate of Alzheimer's disease. Chronic depression is one of the problems. If we are being depressed for too long, I mean, nobody chooses to be depressed. It is what happens because of complex social interactions. This is society, and this is us. We want something from them. That's everybody's thing. We want recognition, we want money, we want attention. It could be any of it. Everybody falls in this society, including parents, school, teachers, friends, enemies, everybody. So when we don't get what we want, when we do not get what we want, and we get what we don't want, we don't want any physical hurt, we don't want hate, we don't want hate, we don't want to give away our money, right? It is a balance between what we want from the society and what the society does to us. And because of the complexity of the way the structure society is made, excuse me, Sorry. So because of these interactions, say exam is even CA exam is a a stress, isn't it? And then there are several forms of stress. This is stress is coming from fear of losing or fear of not getting, right? Stress is those things when we have too many desires, or we don't want to let go of some things, that is going to cause stress, and that is basically generally put in, that can lead to depression. Similarly, infections sometimes can also lead to depression. If we are unhealthy in general, or we have suspicions of unhealthiness, could cause depression. And sometimes because of injury, depression could happen as well. So when this happens, we have chronic inflammation, neurotrophin signaling, and other things. We don't have to go into the details, but how to implement or shape our life based on what the science says is what I'm trying to, that is why I put this here. We'll have increased glucocorticoids, increased pro-inflammatory cytokinins and other signaling molecules, which will increase the amyloid beta toxicity. And that probably, this is where, if this forms, we are likely to prone to Alzheimer's disease. So the easiest way, probably, to the best of my understanding, is to, I mean, again, we have something to be in. We have to be successful. What is successful? Be better than others, right? Be better than others. That's what is successful. And if you want to show you're better than others, we are in a kind of race. And that itself, whether we win or lose, could influence the way we sense. So while there is no point if we are not in the race. We can just quit all of it right now, no education, nothing. We can just sit home and probably survive on a daily basis. But that's not what I imply. What I imply is, while you try to be successful, first thing is to be realistic. And second thing is to track your mind. What I meant is have self-reflection about seeing yourselves and trying to analyze yourselves, what you're doing right, which one is causing stress. All those that are within your hand, you can probably eliminate those from your daily schedule, so that you don't get stressed unnecessarily. But stress is important for our progress. We have been successful enough because of stress, but it should be only a little bit. It should not be too much. Small doses of stress occasionally are a good thing. That's how CAA end semester, these exams will help. Imagine if we never had exams, we wouldn't actually be studying beyond 5th grade, I guess. Okay, so I will stop here and I will take in the next class. Yes, as I said, sorry, I will just take a minute here. I want in the next class, I will continue with this a little bit, but I want you to upload a small document on 2 strategies. Okay, please look into the scientific literature. You can go to NCBI or the PubMed and try to find some articles. I want you to draw flowcharts of for 2 therapy, 2 ways of how Alzheimer's can be treated using stem cells. Okay, there are many other things using ultrasound, and other things are also there, but I think we should try to see about stem cell based methods. So I need you to find out stem cell therapy for Alzheimer's disease. Two of them, make flowcharts and upload it on Google Classroom. I will raise an assignment in that. Okay, please do it by tomorrow morning. It doesn't take more than half an hour. Okay, please tell others as well. Okay, thank you very much. We'll meet in the next class tomorrow.